Next company up on stage is Alzecure with the CEO Martin Jönsson, and for the Q&A we will also be joined by CSO Johan Sandin. But Martin, take it away.
Thank you so much. Hello, my name is Martin Jönsson and I'm the CEO of Alzecure Pharma. And Alzecure Pharma, we are a biotech company who are focusing on Alzheimer's and pain. We are a spin-out out of AstraZeneca and have been funded initially by the Swedish Alzheimer's Fund. And we are developing small molecule assets, first in class. And we are having 3 platforms, 2 in Alzheimer's and 1 in pain. And in Alzheimer's, we have new Restore, which we developed to improve learning and memory capability, focusing on Alzheimer's. And then we have Alzstatin, which is a preventive treatment against Alzheimer's. And then we have pain projects. We are listed at NASDAQ. We have a market cap around 160, a cash position of 33 million as reported in the latest Q1 report. We also have a right issue, which already is fully secured, bringing in 30 million gross. And we also have a grant from the European Innovation Council, and the total grant there was 2.5 million euros. As a company, we are our business model is to be research and development company. So we are really focusing on out-license projects and to out-license 1 to 2 projects this year, and then to drive the other project forward. And when it comes to our pipeline of small molecule programs, we have new Restore, which we have positive phase 1 data, and where we are going into phase 2 with the funding from the European Innovation Council. And then we are having new Alzstatin, a preventive treatment, which we are preparing for phase 1. And then we are having our pain project, ACD137, where we are focusing on osteoarthritis, which we also are preparing for phase 1. And then we have ACD440, where we have positive data in phase 2 in neuropathic pain, and where we also have positive where we also have orphan designation from EMA and FDA, and also positive feedback with regard to a pivotal trial that we are preparing for. As a company within Alzheimer's, we have 2 projects. Alzstatin, focusing on preventing Alzheimer's, and new Restore to improve learning and memory capabilities. And here we are validated by Big Pharma, Roche and Eisai, which we think is very positive. In new Restore, we have, it's building on that in the brain there are neurotrophins, BDNF and NGF, which are key for brain health and learning and memory capabilities. And individuals who are low on these neurotrophins have a more rapid disease progression when they have Alzheimer or different forms of neurodegenerative diseases. So our concept here is to increase the levels of BDNF and NGF and the signaling of these neurotrophins. And how do we do this? We are doing this by having developed positive allosteric modulators, which are increasing the signaling of BDNF and NGF. We already now have positive preclinical studies on learning and memory capabilities, and we also have generated data supporting potential disease-modifying abilities, improving brain health, synaptic health, neuroprotection, and mitochondrial function. And here we are now having data showing that these molecules are improving both the ability to learn, the ability to store what you have learned, and also the ability to remember what you have learned. So if you have learned something and forgotten it, we have tests where we are showing that we actually can bring back memories. And what we are having as well is we have positive phase 1 data showing that the compound ACD856, which we are preparing for phase 2 now, is safe and well tolerated. We show that this molecule has an excellent PK profile for once daily, and also that it's passing the blood-brain barrier with over 37%, and also that it is engaging centers in the brain, which is key for the ability to learn and remember, as well as treating depression. So now we are preparing for the phase 2A study. And this study, we have received financing grant from the European Innovation Council, which we received last year. And here we are now preparing to start the study in the fall of this year. Additionally, on Alzstatin, here we are focusing on that what's happening in the brain when you are building up plaque is due to that you are having production of toxic A-beta 42, which is cleaved out and which is then building up into plaque. And what we want to do is to minimize this production to prevent plaque from building up and also actually plaque clearance. And here we have data showing that we can diminish the production of this toxic A-beta 42 with over 60%. And when we are increasing this production of A-beta 42, we're also increasing the production of beneficial A-beta 37 and 38. And we last year also published where we published data which was looking at how we are impacting the buildup of these toxic proteins and the generation of plaque. But here we also saw that we also impacted existing plaque, and you saw a plaque clearance of around 30% during a time period of 28 days. And we have continued to work on this and have additional data now which is supporting this. So we see potential to use this both for primary prevention and secondary prevention. And here, when it comes to the patient groups that we see that we could treat, we see the opportunity to go in maintenance treatment in patients who have developed Alzheimer's. We also see the opportunity to combine it with existing treatments such as antibodies. And there are already trials going on this with Roche compound. And then we also see the optimal treatment, and that is to go in as a preventive treatment. And here the concept would be that you take a blood sample and see, am I producing increased level of these toxic proteins? And B, going in with genetic screening and see, do I have an increased risk of developing Alzheimer's? And if this is the case, then you should have the ability to be treated early on so you don't develop Alzheimer's. And here we are preparing for a phase 1, and already in the phase 1 we plan to include both healthy volunteers as a traditional but also Alzheimer's patients, and in this study to see how we can diminish the production of these toxic proteins A-beta 40 and 42. And what is relevant to state here is that Roche is also in this space, and they are validating what we are doing, and they are now in phase 2, and we have a molecule in ACD680 which we when we test it looks like it's more potent than the Roche compound. So we think we have a very interesting asset that can be potentially a best in class. And then going into our pain assets. Pain is an area where we really see a huge unmet medical need, and that the number of patients is truly increasing now with the aging population. And here we are having 2 treatments that we are developing for. So osteoarthritis, knee pain, and here we are having ACD137. And then we also, when it comes to neuropathic pain, which is the biggest individual pain market, here we have ACD440, where we already today have positive phase 2 data. And if we begin with ACD137, non-opioid treatment for osteoarthritis, here we are building on the science that The antibodies, NGF antibodies that has been tested in phase 3 showed very good efficacy, but they had problems with side effects. So the antibodies validated that bringing down the signaling on NGF can be an attractive way of treating this patient group. And this is exactly what we have been working on with this compound, where we are blocking off the signaling through a TrkA-NAM. And here we are anticipating to not having the safety problems that the antibodies had. And we have here a compound in ACD137, which is very potent and also extremely selective. And this is a space where we see several of the big players coming in, but looking at the data of their molecule, we see it as we have a more attractive molecule. And then going into ACD440, where we are focusing on neuropathic pain, and we have positive phase 2 data. This is an asset which we have in-licensed from Big Pharma, and we have reformulated into a gel. We have run 2 clinical studies showing a positive effect, and the last one was a phase 2 study in chronic patients with peripheral neuropathic pain. And this study showed that we could diminish the pain by around 50% in temperature-induced neuropathic pain. We also saw that we didn't have any safety problems, and also that we could identify the patient that are responding on our treatment. And here we are now focusing for the next phase. And the next phase, which we are primarily focusing on, is an orphan indication, pain in erythromelalgia, which is a heat-induced neuropathic pain. And this is, we have received orphan designation from both the European Medical Agency and FDA. And from the FDA, we have also received positive feedback for a potential pivotal trial. And this is something which we are now taking forward and focusing on out-licensing. And then to summarize, why Alzecure Pharma? We are targeting areas of significant unmet medical need. We are doing it with a strong team that have developed what I've presented to you. We have platforms of first-in-class properties which really can become game changers. We are also doing parallel investments with potent follow-up programs, and we are not a one-trick pony. All the programs we are having multi-billion market opportunities, and also that we as a company, we have evolved from an ID company into a phase 2 company, and also have been validated by the European Innovation Council, which have given us a grant for a study in Alzheimer's patient that we are planning to start this year. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much for that presentation, Martin. And I will also say welcome to Johan Sandin, Chief Scientific Officer.
Thank you very much.
So let's start with the phase 1 study with ACD856, which you are currently conducting and is finished. When do you expect to present results from the study?
On AC, potentially we will have results finalizing it in 2027. So yes, so starting in the fall.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
And the phase 1 data?
The phase 1B data, the high-level data. Yeah, that will come at a high level. We expect to have that quite soon, actually. So.
Okay. And you've already done a phase 1 study with this candidate earlier, but now you're doing one where you increase the dose to position it within depression. Yes. So what do you expect this candidate can deliver within depression?
So like Alzheimer's disease, depression is an area with huge unmet medical need as well. There is obviously existing treatments, but they have side effects, and about 1/3 of the patients are actually treatment resistant. So and looking at the mechanism behind ACD856, targeting BDNF signaling, we know BDNF has a very strong scientific validation in the depression area. And we have also preclinical data, we published data around that, showing ACD856 have these antidepressant effects. We also see a very strong interest among pharma for this mechanism in depression. So I think we have a really interesting opportunity here.
And excitingly, you will start a phase 2 study within this candidate in Alzheimer's in autumn. What will you look for in this study? What do you expect to deliver when it comes to results?
Yes, so this study, which is a double-blind, placebo-controlled trial in patients with early Alzheimer's disease. Here, obviously, we'll be looking at safety tolerability, of course, but also looking at quantitative EEG, which is where we saw a positive signal already in the phase 1b trial there, indicating that the compound affects pathways in the brain involved in both cognition and depression. So that's obviously another endpoint. We'll also look at various exploratory endpoints, and that includes biomarkers, because we know we have seen preclinically effects of ACD856 on disease-modifying properties, if you will, neuroprotective effects, etc. So that's something we want to explore. We're also going to explore cognition in this trial. So there's multiple endpoints in this trial.
And you have mentioned earlier that you have ongoing discussions with the potential partners with all your projects, and I would assume that that goes for both depression and Alzheimer's with this candidate. Would you rather out-license the candidate as fully within one package, or can you carve out the IP rights within depression and Alzheimer's?
You could potentially do that, but what's the most important thing is that a company that is in licensing our assets feel very comfortable with, how should I say, the in licensing, and don't see that they get competition from somebody else. So if you can find a party who potentially can do both depression and Alzheimer's as well as other indication, we believe that this is the absolutely most attractive, if we say like that.
And the pharma giant Eisai has a similar compound, E2511. How would you compare 856 to that candidate?
That's a really good question as well. So E2511, it targets a similar mechanism as our compound, but 856 has a clear differentiation here. While Eisai's compound is only targeting NGF signaling and has neuroprotective properties, and actually they describe it as a disease-modifying agent for various types of neurodegenerative disorders. It does not have these symptomatic effects, that cognition-enhancing effects, the anti-inflammatory effects, antidepressant effects that ACD856 has, because this is mediated by TrkB BDNF signaling. So we have a clear differentiation. Also, I would say from a clinical perspective, our compound has much better half-life, so it's more suitable like for once daily dosing. So we see a clear differentiation here.
Okay, interesting. And if we move over to your other Alzheimer candidate to prevent Alzheimer's disease, you have no clinical study ongoing, but still this year will provide some interesting clinical data from your competitor Roche, as you mentioned, Martin. If Roche delivers great results with their gamma secretase modulator, how would that impact the out-licensing case for ACD680?
Very, very positively. I mean, we already now see a very positive interest when it comes to gamma secretase modulators. And if they come with a positive study, this will really be positive for us. Also based on the data that we already have when we compare with what we believe is the Roche compound. So this can be an eye-opener. And we also believe that this will change. This will be a potential over time paradigm shift within Alzheimer's treatment, because with the gamma secretase modulator, you go in early and you bring down the production of these toxic proteins that build up in plaque. And as we have shown and published on last year, potentially we can also see an impact on existing plaque. So we believe this can be very, very positive for us.
And as far as I know, ACD680 is the only runner-up to Nivigacet Roche compound.
We know that, yes, as we know as well, we know that the others have tried, but we also know that the others have failed. And it is a very tricky space, so we feel very comfortable.
And if we discuss your pain project, the TrkA-NAM ACD137, you have seen similar effects as with the antibody tanezumab, But tanezumab is not on the market today, as it has a quite harsh side effect profile with the progressive disease, rapid progressing disease. What side effects do you expect with ACD137?
So, as Martin explained earlier on, TrkA-NAM has a more selective action than the antibodies do. So it's specifically targeting the pain relieving pathway, if you will. So avoiding the side effects with the rapidly progressing osteoarthritis, which was the real problem with the antibodies, but still maintaining this really step change in efficacy when it comes to the pain relieving effect. So I think there's a clear differentiation here, and we've recently actually published data. We recently published a publication in around TrkA-NAM, and the really interesting and nice effects. We saw these protective effects on the joints actually with our compound. So it actually seems to protect the joints rather than what tanezumab does is degrading them. So it's a clear differentiation, I would say.
Time runs fast, but the final question. You're now conducting a rights issue of 30 million SEK that is fully secured from your two largest shareholders.
Correct.
And the discount was almost negligible.
Yes.
And so it was a very well executed share issue. What will you use the money for?
It is for both preparing for the coming trial in Alzheimer's, and then primarily strengthening us with regard to BD and out-licensing and partnerships. So that is the main goal there.
So we will look forward for another eventful year for Alzecure. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.